Relationships aren't always sunshine and rainbows. Just like in nature, you can't have rainbows without a little rain.
Journey with us
Shani Goodson.
and Dr. Sunjata as we share stories and insights about our thriving, unconventional love life and our unique take on relationships and consensual non-monogamy. What up, what up, what up?
Hey, y'all.
SunShan and Rainbows,
It's back.
Season 2, Episode 5.
Oh my gosh, episode 5. Okay.
Happy to be with you all once again. And we're going to talk about sexual liberation and the spectrum of like the ways that people show up sexually, things that I didn't know about until I got into this consensually non-monogamous and polyamorous space. So I'm excited to share and talk with you all about these things today. And before we get into it, let's check in. How you feeling today?
I'm a little tired and it's cold, which, not my favorite season, but
Yo,
I'm all right.
yeah, when we woke up this morning, I looked at the temperature and it was 29 degrees outside. So yeah, we both are more so tropical people. So,
I don't look forward to this time of year at all. So, but
nah,
other than that, I'm chilling. I'm doing okay.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Same here. I had some caffeine and I'm ready to rock and roll. Feeling good, feeling excited to share with the people.
All right. This is definitely a juicy topic too. Remember last season we had did a sex show. And if you go, it might still be the number one watched episode
I
of the
wonder
season.
why.
So I would expect something similar with this episode. People
Yeah.
love to talk about sex. And
Y'all love to
honestly,
talk about sex. Y'all love to talk about sex. The funny thing is, so many people stigmatize sex, but
right.
I feel like it's both. I feel like people who love sex and love to talk about it watch that episode. And I feel like the people who stigmatize sex still want to tune in and
Definitely.
watch that episode.
There's definitely curiosity, even if you're like, ugh, I don't talk about sex. I know you were watching that episode,
Mhm.
right? I know that was you on there watching it. So I would expect that y'all be interested in this one too. And I think this is a good topic because sexual liberation is definitely a big reason why I like it here. Okay. It's a
Facts.
big reason why polyamory and non-monogamy is appealing to me. It's because sexual liberation is a part of that. It's part and parcel, I think, for a lot of people. Not
Mhm.
everyone. You'll hear lots of people say that polyamory is not about sex,
Yep.
and that's true for lots of people. And it's not just about sex,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I do enjoy the sexual freedom, the liberation.
Yeah, and we're gonna get into all of that. And same. And yeah, so yeah, we're gonna get into all that. But as we said before, we'll say it again, we are two very sexual people. So, it's and even before I got into polyamory, I remember going all the way back to high school and college. Like talking about sex has always been one of my favorite topics. So let's go. So let's start with giving them some insight into our sex lives before consensual non-monogamy and
Well, you kind
polyamory.
of started it there. You talked about high school and college, so take us back.
Okay,
What was
okay.
your life like?
Well, okay, man, I wasn't thinking about going that far back, but I guess like here's what I could say. I was one of the things I always said is like I was never the player type. Never the player type. I didn't fit the stereotype of like most men who were trying to quote unquote dog women out and things like that. Throughout high school, I was only primarily having sex with people who I was in a relationship with, my girlfriends, at the time. And when I was having sex with one person, I wasn't having sex with anyone else. Like I was only having sex with a girlfriend. Um, I can only remember one case. I can remember one case where that there was some spillover where I did have sex with like a friend.
No,
Um,
whole phase.
well, fast forward, I'll get to that.
All right, my bad, my bad.
Um, I did have sex with like a friend outside of a girlfriend at the time, and that was a one-time incident. But like she and I were like close for many years, and So anyway, moving on. um,
Keep
it,
reminiscing
it,
over
it
here.
it continued into college. It was a similar vibe where, again, when I first went to college, I had a girlfriend back home in Philly, and I was just primarily dealing with her. I wasn't like dealing with other women on campus or anything like that. And then when she and I broke up, I was more free and single. And I talked to various women here and there, and eventually it led to sex.
Too.
Talked to, dated, related. I didn't have any girlfriends though, in college, other than like the girlfriend that I broke up with, or that we broke up like probably my sophomore year. And I didn't have a girlfriend. I dated people and there was some sex happening. But that was kind of like my free period, like from like sophomore year through like my senior year. But I really didn't like have a quote unquote whole phase until I graduated. And then from like graduation of senior year and like the year or two between like that time frame before I met who would eventually be my wife, I had a lot of sex. But here's the thing, it wasn't like I was like running game. I was very open with the women that I was engaging with, that I was just free and single and living life. So that's kind of how it went for me.
That was your sex life before consensual non-monogamy.
Okay, that was just the high school and college phase.
Right.
Um, Fast forward, I met my soon to be who would eventually be my wife, in my early 20s. I met her at age 22. And we started dating, and we dated for 3 years before we ended up getting married. Um, and then I was in a monogamous marriage. And I would say that our sex life was, at the time, it was what I thought was good. It was good. I enjoyed it, she enjoyed it. um there was some misalignments that would emerge over time, in terms of, let's say, our drives. I had more of a drive. I was more of the initiator, when it came to sex. And over time, I desired someone that would also give me some energy, like, and initiate, but that just wasn't really her thing. But I remember communicating that at some point, and then her starting to make an effort to initiate. So overall, I would say, I'm grateful for the effort she made, even coming into recognition about those misalignments. In terms of like frequency, she would like make an attempt. I was more so someone who would like say I wanted to have sex at least every other day, and she could go without much longer. um we worked that out. And in terms of like the types of sex and things we did, I would say it was very vanilla, based on what I understand about kinks and fetishes and things like that, that I had no clue about prior to getting into living my polyamorous truth.
No fantasies. You never had like kinky fantasies before?
Well, I did, so I would say one of the fantasies that I had, it was a consistent theme throughout my marriage, that, well, it emerged and then it was a consistent theme throughout my marriage, was I started to have a fantasy of having like a threesome. And I remember bringing that to my wife at the time, and she was not interested at all. And her thing was she wasn't interested in women, so she couldn't wrap her mind around it. She basically shut it down. Every time I talked about it, um, and I didn't have the creativity or the language to explain. Well, it could possibly be, you know, you know,
The
just me,
creativity, I'm
me,
crying.
me engaging with you and another woman, but y'all don't gotta engage with each other and things like that. It was just like, which is a form of a threesome where the women don't have to be bisexual. Um, so, but it was a fantasy. It was. And like if I ever watch porn, I'm not saying if, when I watch porn, it was that. It was threesome. So that was like definitely a fantasy, and it got shut down. But outside of that, it was just like me, the vanilla sex life was good to me. I enjoy vanilla sex. So that was pretty much my sex life. And yeah.
I think, oh yeah. I mean, well, I'm
Any
getting carried away.
any questions? Anything you think I missed?
No, I think you got it. I mean, I mean, we're not here yet, but it's funny that you're talking about like vanilla in this way. You feel like you've graduated past more. We'll get there. I'm
Yeah,
not even
yeah,
going.
yeah, we'll get there.
I'm gonna try not to jump ahead, but I'm like, anyway.
Hmm.
I guess for me, I don't really. I was married for a long time. I don't really sex has always been like a curiosity thing for me more than anything else. Like if I'm interested in somebody, I'm curious about what sex would be like with them. That's kind of how I approach sex. But I was married and my marriage was pretty sexless in general. I would say our relationship or before we got married, we had sex. Um that was a special time of life. We were a little in a haze. But I would say by the time we got married and we had our first two kids, it was pretty much a sexless marriage. Like we went long periods of time without having sex. Um, and he didn't seem to want to. Really, he didn't seem to want to. And I definitely had moments where I felt like I wanted, like I would initiate it and be rejected and be kind of rebuffed. So I didn't really put a lot of, initiation effort anymore. Uh, I didn't put any into it. It's interesting because I have three kids, but I can actually remember each instance. I can remember each conception
Mm,
because that's how infrequently we had sex. I know which instance, conceived each child. Um, so I didn't really have a lot of sex, but I thought about sex a lot. And when I was married, I masturbated a lot because I definitely wanted to have sex. It was a huge reason why our relationship fell apart. I would write about it I look back at my journals from when I was married and I'd be writing about it all the time. Like it was always a goal, try to have more sex, try to have more sex,
mm,
try to see if I could get him to want to have more sex, that kind of thing. And it's interesting because when we broke up, he kind of was like he sort of said he wished we had more sex, but I was like, you didn't want to, and then we never really came to any closure or any like we didn't come to any conclusions about it, but we were not aligned. Let's say that sex was a huge problem in our marriage. I would say my marriage was largely platonic. We had a great friend relationship. We had a lot of jokes together. Um, but we were not sexually compatible.
mm,
So I definitely felt suppressed, starved. Um, yeah, I knew as soon as my marriage was over, I was going to have more sex. Like
mm,
I knew that. I would say within 2 weeks of our separation, I was on a date with another man. I look back at some memories and it was largely because I really wanted that like physical affection. Like I really wanted to be wanted. I really wanted to see if a man was going to want me. So yeah, within a month I had had sex with someone new um, because I really wanted to have sex. Like it was a huge problem for me. And I was in China when my marriage fell apart, so the guy who I moved on with, he was far. So we didn't have he was in a faraway city. So we didn't have an ongoing relationship. So when I got back to America, I was like, listen, what's on my agenda? Some fucking. Like that's what's on my agenda. I'm not even gonna lie. I wanted to have sex. And that doesn't mean promiscuity. I just wanted to have fulfilling, like, uh passionate sex. That's been a priority of mine, I would say, in the last 3 years or so.
mm,
So
mm.
kind of that's where I am now.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
important to me.
yeah. So you kind of transition a little into the sense consensual non-monogamy.
Well, I wouldn't. I don't think I've been like truly practicing non-monogamy until I came back here
Right, right.
to the U.S. To be honest with you, I was not like I was dating,
Mm-hmm.
but when I came back to the US in 2021, that's when I was like, okay, I'm really polyamorous. I'm doing polyamorous things.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, two totally different experiences in our marriage and our sexual experiences being married. Um yeah, for me, I think it's important to share that, I did not draw a line in the sand and decide that I wanted to live my polyamorous truth because I wasn't fulfilled sexually,
Hmm.
in my marriage. This is the nuance that I think is important for people to hear because I think, when people hear polyamory, they instantly jump to sex. For me, while I did know that I wanted to have more like a variety and more let's say I wanted to be more expressive sexually. I knew that I wanted to experience different things sexually that weren't possible in my marriage. That wasn't the driving force for why my marriage ended. For me, it was truly a desire to that I had a capacity to love more people, and I wanted to experience, that feeling, receiving love, from more than one person, and giving love to more than one person. And you know, for me, because sex is a part of the ways that I love when it comes to romantic love, that was a part of it, but it wasn't, the crux of it. I wasn't, I say that to say I wasn't unfulfilled sexually in that marriage.
Mhm.
And, the benefit of being, non-monogamous and polyamorous is that one person doesn't have to fulfill all your needs and desires. Um, so I say that to say, if my ex-wife would have wanted to come into this polyamorous journey with me, I would have been totally cool with bringing her along. I didn't want to get away from her. I just wanted more. I wanted to experience more. I had more capacity, if that makes sense.
I think that's interesting. You say you weren't unfulfilled, but you weren't exactly getting all the things that you necessarily wanted.
Right.
So, what's the difference between those two things? Like, what's the difference between being unfulfilled and not having all the things you want? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think I'm saying I wasn't
Or
unfulfilled.
content,
Yeah, I was content with that relationship as it was. I
right?
wasn't like,
I want to change this relationship. You
yeah,
just wanted a different relationship that brought a different dynamic.
yes.
Okay.
I wanted the freedom to explore more.
Okay.
And I didn't think that that relationship had to end in order for me to do it.
Right.
It was her decision because I wanted to live my polyamorous truth and she was not polyamorous and I respect that she wasn't. And this wasn't the space for her. So that meant our relationship had to end.
Mhm.
But what I'm saying is, if she was willing to step into this space with
Right.
me, that
You
relationship
would
was,
still be having
we,
sex.
we would still, I would still be having sex with her and enjoying the sex that I
Got
was
you.
having with her.
As well as the sex you were having with other
Right,
people.
as
I
well
got
as
you.
expanding and experiencing other things with other people to fulfill other desires that I had.
So what's your sex life like now? Or what's your sex life been like since non-monogamy? I wouldn't say necessarily now, because
Yeah.
right, that includes me necessarily. I'm not asking for a critique, okay? I'm just asking. I'm just asking about, since you've gotten to this world, since you've become liberated.
I will say that it's been everything that I daydreamed and imagined that it would be and more. Because when I tell you, for those who watch season one, that I went to counseling and therapy for 6 years on and off, trying to suppress my polyamorous truth. And during that time, I would just daydream and have fantasies about the possibilities were if I was sexually liberated. And now that I've been here for 7 years now. Um, Again, it's been everything I imagined and more. So what do I mean by that? The freedom and liberation to engage sexually with people that I want to, that we mutually agree to. If we catch a vibe, if we start a relationship, if we're exploring a connection and we want to explore the sexual element of that connection, we can explore it. And it's been a lot of fun exploring that, with different people. Um,
And the we he's talking about is him and whoever else he wants to be in a relationship with,
yes,
not the two of us
right.
necessarily.
I'm even thinking about right now, my mindset, I'm thinking about before her.
Right.
Um, so yeah, me and whoever that person is. And and with that, it's been like the frequency. Again, I'm highly sexual and I have a high sex drive. I guess, it's relative, but a relatively high sex drive. And I'm able to, I've been able to have sex at a rate that's been very fulfilling. The variety in sexual, connections and partners has given me the opportunity, to have different experiences with different people in short periods of time and being able to like take that, you know, the juiciness of that in my mind and just like, bask in the
In the hold'em. You said
bask
the hoe.
bask in the hold of of like being able to say, let's say,
It's
if
hedonism.
a
I feel
three,
you.
I'm very much so a hedonist,
It's
right?
hedonistic.
I'm pleasure. I seek pleasure, and I'm unabashedly, enjoy pleasure and think that pleasure is a right for all of us. And I'm not ashamed to say that. So, if I had a situation where I may have sex with like two, three, four women in 1 week, that's dope. Like, that's like, wow, and it's like, it's all consensual. It's all like, we all know, and it's nothing like I'm hiding.
Like that. I have to say, like, this is just some a side thought, but I think that's something that comes as a result of our conditioning. It's almost like we feel like, ooh, I'm doing something like out of the norm. Like, ooh, I'm doing something that people don't get to do. You know what I mean? There's something like naughty about it that kind
Yeah.
of makes it more exciting. And I think that's a result of conditioning, which
Yeah.
is still fun, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I just like to like recognize like the root of it, because I felt like that too, where I'm like, somebody was doing this to me last night and now this has happened to me this morning. Hold on. Like
Yeah.
I've had that thought before, but it's definitely on some like, I'm so naughty. Oh my gosh. Like I'm such a hoe. Like that's definitely what the feeling is. So I
Yeah,
feel you.
I definitely have basked in those moments. Like, I was just with her last night and this morning, or today I'm with her, and tomorrow I'm gonna be with her. Like, oh my gosh, this is so fun. I'm having a blast. And also, I've learned about certain like kinks that I enjoy. And I'm not someone like, since I've been in this world, and been in polyamory groups, and they have different posts about kinks and things and fetishes, like my whole world has been expanded about what that is and what it means. Like, I did not know that there were so many kinks and fetishes out there, especially, I had this like stereotype, because the only time I saw people talking about those things, if I watched like Real Sex on HBO, and it was usually people of European descent. So when I got into these black and poly spaces, and seeing so many people of African descent talking about what their kinks and fetishes are, it really just, my mind got expanded, and I got to see and get insights and kind of peek in on the different things that people were into. And I will say that, it's a wide range of things. And I would say most of them are still like, I'm not very I don't consider myself very kinky. However, I have discovered some that have been really fun that I would never would have come across in my marriage, because we had a very vanilla, marriage where we didn't explore kinks and
So
things.
this is the part I was gonna like when you were talking earlier. I was like, I think you are a little bit vanilla, but I understand what you mean because if vanilla's a spectrum, y'all were vanilla. Y'all was vanilla, not even with the vanilla bean, not even
Yeah.
with the dark vanilla bean specks in it.
Mhm.
Y'all was vanilla vanilla.
Yeah, very
And
vanilla.
now you're more like, Madagascar vanilla bean.
Yeah,
You know what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah.
You're
I still love
a
my
little
vanilla sex.
exotic.
I definitely still love my vanilla sex. And for those who may not know, what do I mean by vanilla sex? So just think about the conventional ways that people have sex.
Yeah.
Like, you explore different positions. That's pretty much the extent of
It's
it.
basically like sex without the heavy kinks. Like if you're thinking about like, BDSM, that's the other side of the spectrum. And vanilla sex is just your run of the mill, regular sex.
Yeah, just
Um,
moving around, different positions, different places,
yeah.
things like that.
Vanilla
That's
has like a
vanilla.
bad reputation, but vanilla sex is absolutely passionate and enjoyable and
Hmm.
all of the things.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, because
Yeah.
again, I enjoy my vanilla sex. I don't need a bunch of props. I don't need, to be doing flips and handstands off the wall.
Not
Like,
flips and
I don't need to
handstands.
be hanging from the ceiling, from the chandeliers and ropes and all that stuff. Like, and speaking of ropes, that's a whole thing, right? But I don't do those things, and I say I don't crave them. However, I have explored and experimented with
About
certain
to say.
elements of these things, with certain sex partners, because this has been an interest of theirs. So if I have a sex partner that, we enjoy each other's time, and they want to try some of these things, I've been able to try certain things to be able to say, I don't crave that. That's not me. But then every once in a while, something that's shown up where it's like, all right, I can dig it. I like that. And I want to do it again, that I never would have thought that I would have been into, that I've been exposed to since I've, met and been around more liberated people, more explorative people, who are more kinky, let's say more kinky, people. And that's been really fun. Hope you're enjoying this episode. Let's take a quick break to tell you about something that we've been working on.
We're excited to announce our course and coaching program, Relationship Bliss, where we help polyamorous people transform their relationships into highly compatible, peaceful, deeply aligned, and blissful partnerships.
We do this by sharing techniques for effective communication, deeper connection, and conflict resolution. The program offers a self paced course with 5 learning modules, 25 training videos, and live virtual coaching sessions with us, Shani and Sunjata.
Learn more at go-growdialogue.com.
Thanks for listening. Now back to the show. Another thing I'll talk about that I've been able to experience since I've been in this space is like sex parties and group play and things like that. And that was one of the things that I remember like reading about when I was still married, like sex clubs and like wondering like what would that be like. And I remember one of the first things I did when my marriage ended was go to a sex club just to be in the energy of it all and just to see like how would that feel? Like the whole idea of like, voyeurism or exhibitionism. Voyeurism is the idea of it's a kink for some people who like to watch other people having sex. Conventionally, a lot of people do that through watching porn on TV. But really, if you go to a sex club, it's like live porn. You get the voyeur, or if you go to a sex party, it's like live porn. You get to watch other people having sex. And when I went to the sex club, I didn't know if I would feel like yuck or if I would be into it.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got there, I felt totally comfortable. I'm like, I found my people. And, I had a really good time just being able to like play with the person I went with, where we were able to engage with each other at a heightened level of like passion and energy based off the other sexual energy that was going on in the space, watching other people, etc. So, that's been something that has been, since something new that I wouldn't have experienced in my marriage. That's been fun at times. Yeah.
Yeah. So you feel like it's been novel and new for you. That's kind of the theme of your sex life after coming to consensual non-monogamy.
Yeah, novel, new. And yes, I've been able to experience that threesome that I always fantasized about prior to coming into this space. Like when I was married, that was like the number one thing. Like I don't want to die without having a threesome. Like that seems so fun. Like seriously, it was the real thing. Like I'm like it seems so fun. Like I want to do that. I want to have that experience. And the funny thing is, it didn't happen right away. It took many years. It didn't happen until
Oh, many
like
years.
yeah, it took like I think it was 3 years later,
That's many.
3 or 4 years, 3 or 4 years into me being in this space. It was three before I had my first threesome. And then after that, it was like another year or two before I had another one. So
That's right. I'll crack up.
it's
This
it.
cracks me up.
I like what I like. So, but yeah. How about you? What's it been like? What's changed for you?
I've always, I always had sexual thoughts before I was married. I probably was into more sexual deviance than you were. Um, so those things were already on my mind throughout my marriage. Sometimes I think about how much like what I was really suppressing throughout my marriage because it was definitely hard. So for me, it's just been fun to be able to do whatever I want to do. I don't have anything specific in the way that he does, where he's like, I had this like one fantasy or something I really wanted to do. I just wanted to be like, sure, yeah, I I want to try that. Why not? And I've definitely learned things like, going to being in public, in the same like sex party, sex club energy he was talking about, that definitely gives me ideas about what I'm comfortable with. You don't know what you're going to be comfortable with until you're there. So I like learning those things. Um, I like that I have the option to engage with non-penis holders, who don't have a penis, because that's a whole different world. Like women who interact with women sexually, if you're listening to this, you know what I'm saying. Like the sapphic woman on woman with no man present connection is very different than having sex with a man, or a man with, a person with a penis, or even when a person with a penis is present, it's like it's just totally different to me anyway. So that's been fun for me, being able to just kind of do all of the things that I wished I was able to do, just have more sex. That's another thing that he mentioned, but just the frequency of sex is better to me now. Um, the intimacy. I'm not really, even though I say, I came here because I want my sexual liberation and I like to do what I want to do, I really like to have sex with people who I love. Like, that's my preference. I would rather have sex with people who I have feelings for. That doesn't always happen. I'm not saying I never have sex with people who I don't have deep feelings for, but if I'm gonna have sex consistently, yeah, I need some feelings. I need some, like, some romantic feelings. So uh I wouldn't say I don't feel like promiscuous, I'm not like, "Ooh, I'm out here trolling for sex." No, but I do like that I have options, and I like the novelty also, just being able to have friend groups where you can kind of there's like a sexual element within that friend group. Like, within our community, I think we have people who we feel um cool with, like close to, but maybe not romantically, but you still have the option to kind of like play. It's like playing in community. It's fun. It's just been fun. For me, it's been fun to experience that kind of like love, attention, affection, intimacy, passion.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it's been good.
And play in the like sex party context is called play. Like if you have sex with someone that you're not in a relationship with, we'll say play. Um, but yeah, I would say that as well. Like I always say, I enjoy having sex with people that I know, that I love, and that I know and love. So I'm not like someone who just can meet someone out in nature and they're attracted to me,
In nature.
and all of a sudden I want to have sex. Like,
But this is one of the things I learned when we went to like a sex club is I was like, I don't mind watching this, this is kind of fun. I like to watch, but I don't want to engage with any of y'all. I don't know you,
mm,
I wouldn't mind, parallel engaging. And then, when we leave here, we get to know each other, and then maybe it develops into something after the fact. But I don't think I would ever engage with a random, not ever, I shouldn't say that, because I feel like I have, but it's not typical for me to engage with a stranger.
like the first time, like the whole idea of like one night stand type energy, and
No,
you
it's
know,
not typical for me to engage with somebody who I would, consider a random.
yeah,
No.
yeah, and that goes both ways. I'm the same way. So, um, yeah, the liberation and freedom sexually doesn't mean promiscuity.
It can, no
For some people it
shame,
can.
no
Yes, no
shame with
shame. We're
promiscuity.
speaking for
I'm just speaking
ourselves.
for myself,
Yeah,
exactly. But and even, this our relationship, where we live together now. So I feel even we were seeing each other frequently before we were living together. This sexual connection is great to me compared to what I had in my marriage, especially. Um, I love that I get to experience the rate and the frequency and the intimacy and the passion that we have also.
indeed,
So on top of my liberation, I love this, and I love that we have this and can have whatever else we want also.
outside of this.
So that's really
And we do, but we're
amazing.
gonna talk about that later. So you know, I guess let's talk about like sexual liberation. I guess we're kind of touching on it, but more specifically, like what it means to us. And I guess I'll go ahead and start and say, for me, sexual liberation just means that I don't have to ask anyone for permission to do what I want to do sexually. Meaning I don't have to um just because I am in a, like with Shani and I, we are in a life partnership. And I have another love that, we spend a significant amount of time together, and we've been relating for many years. Um, you know, I don't have to check in to get permission to go have sex with someone else if I want to. I'm totally free that if me and someone catch a vibe and we decide that we want to engage sexually, I can. That's liberating to me. I also don't have any hangups morally, because of any like religious beliefs or anything like that. I also don't stigmatize sex. I am sex positive. I think that sex is a beautiful thing. I think it's pleasurable. I think it's fun. I think it's playful. I think it's like healing and nurturing to me in a lot of ways. And I don't think there's anything bad about sex that's consensual between two, adults, two or more adults. So all those things are, sec, you know, s- speak to sexual liberation and how I define it. And the last thing I'll say is, we joke around, we'll say hoe and slut because that's the stigmatized terms that people use for sexually free people. Usually sexually free women get stigmatized with those terms. And you'll hear people who are sexually free like us, you know, use it freely. Like, yeah, what? I'll be a slut. I'll be a hoe, if that's what you want to call it. But to me, it just means I'm free to engage any way I want to. I'm free to express myself sexually in any way I want to, with anyone I want to that consents.
Yeah, life is short. It's so strange to me to deny ourselves things that really mean a lot to us. And a lot of us don't deny ourselves other things that we consider to be vices, like sugar, like, you know, fast food. Lots of people we engage in those types of quote unquote vices, which I'm putting that in quotes because what is that? If you enjoy it, we have sex in particular has this stigma, right? Where it's like you have to have sexual discipline, but life is short. And I realized that when I was in my marriage, wishing that I was having more sex, that I didn't have a lot more time, like I would think to myself, I have a lot more life ahead of me. Why should I spend this time not doing what I want to do? Not feeling fulfilled, not feeling the what I want. It's the hedonist in me that we're here for a short time, we're here for a good time, not a long time. So I think that I just want to be able to have pleasurable experiences, whatever those are. And that's kind of what sexual liberation is to me. Like if there's something I want and, my partner doesn't want that, why should that limit us? You don't have to like what I like, we can like different things and still love each other. So for me, sexual liberation is life is short, you know um get it in while you can, get it in while you're healthy and here to experience it because it's fun and it feels good, and we shouldn't have to deny ourselves. That's my like philosophy when it comes to sexual liberation.
Something you said is interesting because I've seen some posts recently around this idea about being disciplined sexually
Yeah.
and how that has helped people in their lives to, be who they want to be in this world as adults, and like really projecting that other people should be more disciplined sexually as well. And I take issue with that. Just like I do with anything that anyone projects onto others. In situations like that, I think that people should speak for themselves. Like I can respect if you're someone who needs to find a level of sexual discipline and whatever that means for you in order to show up in the world and be productive and get things done, etc. But what bothers me is when people project that onto other people. It's like just because that works for you doesn't mean that that works for me. You know, my sex life does not get in the way of my practical life in terms of me showing up in the lives of my children and being what I need to be for them, what I need to be for my co-parent, what I need to be in our, experience as life partners and holding down a household, and what I need to do to, run a business, etc. Like me being free and liberated sexually um does has nothing to do with that. So I just wanted to speak to that.
I think that some people, like everybody needs a certain level of discipline in their lives. And I think it's up to us to decide where we need it. Because, so, like you're saying, some people, and it's why I brought up the idea of sugar and fast food, et cetera, because that's a place where I feel like I need discipline. I feel like I need to discipline myself when it comes to food, when it comes to exercise, because that's an area of my life where I feel like when I'm disciplined, things feel good. Like things flow better for me. So like he said, I totally understand people who feel like this about sex.
Hmm.
Like if you feel like sex is getting in the way of things of your goals and your life and
Right.
all of that, absolutely exercise sexual discipline, but it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
We all have different ways in which we need to practice discipline. Some people need to do it more in their finances,
Right.
right? Some people need to practice discipline in whichever aspect of your life you need to practice it in. And I think we just all need to find what the discipline is for us that we need to focus on, you know?
Indeed.
So I
Indeed.
agree with you.
All right.
So, like, you were talking about the different types of labels earlier that you said you didn't know about. Now,
Yeah.
that's really funny because I actually knew about a lot of those things beforehand. I think like asexual,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
If you don't know what asexual means, these are people who don't feel like sex is very important to them. You know, they can kind of do without it. Sometimes there are people who they call themselves like asexual or ace, put themselves in the ace spectrum. Sex is just not an important part of their life.
Or
Um,
they don't feel it. They don't feel a natural drive. It doesn't mean they don't have sex, but they don't crave it.
Yeah, or they crave it to a lesser extent, or
Hmm.
they might only crave certain types of sexual acts. Like there's lots of different ACE categories.
Hmm.
You might see people describe themselves as demisexual. That usually means that you need to have a emotional connection before you can have sex. And then there's the opposite of that, which is megasexual, which basically means you don't have an emotional connection until you have sex. So some people need the emotional connection first, then they can have sex. That's demi. And some people need the sex and then they can have the emotional connection. That's mega. There's hypersexual, right? Those are
Hmm.
people who are like the opposite of asexual. Very, they want to have sex all the time. Sometimes people might consider that like pathological to an extent, you know, like where they're like a sex addict, you know, if you've heard of that
Yeah, on
before.
the extreme man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So that would be the extreme end. But there's other people who just feel like they need to have sex twice a day, 3 times a day. I would say that's in the hypersexual
definitely,
category.
definitely.
I might lean toward that. And then you have an interesting one that I like, which is the gray and the fraysexual. Fraysexual is one that's kind of interesting to me. If you want to look it up, and it's FRAY sexual. That's when people who they feel curious about sex, but when they have sex with that person, like their interest kind of fades. So it's like there's curiosity, but then they have sex and the interest fades. So if that happens to you, you might consider yourself fraysexual. There's allosexual. Those are people who are more interested in sex with themselves. So there's lots of different types of sexual labels.
Yeah, but and also, would you consider this like a spectrum of sexual drive and desire?
I think that some of them can be put on a spectrum, but I'm not sure that I would say that they're all like on a spectrum. I think they
Some
all
are
describe,
descriptors.
yeah, exactly.
So basically, what we because okay, when we're talking about like asexual versus hypersexual,
Hmm.
that's on a
That's a
spectrum,
spectrum.
right?
Yeah.
But then some of the things like demi versus mega, that's more descriptor
Yeah, I think
of
so.
how someone shows up sexually.
I think so.
And so yeah, what I was saying was I had no clue about this stuff until I got into polyamory groups. Because in the conventional world, my friends, we didn't talk about these nuances.
And you're a man, so like men are expected to just want to have sex all the time.
That part, and that's
Like,
something I wanted to talk about too, because growing up, I hear the same messaging that is through in the music and marketing and movies that men want to have sex with women and men are dogs. They just want to have sex. They just want to have sex. And one of the most interesting things for me that showed up when I got into these polyamorous spaces and I started dating women is that women would tell me that they were in sexless relationships, and one of the main drivers for them wanting to get out of their marriages because they weren't having sex. And then I would talk to like some of the women, they would get into more detail and say that, their husband, is not even that he's cheating, like at least to their knowledge. And some of them felt really confident.
and then you feel
Um,
really bad though, because if a man doesn't want to have sex with you, something's wrong with you.
yeah,
There's something wrong with you as a woman. If a man doesn't want to have sex with you, it's because of you, because he's a man and he wants to have sex. So
right.
if he doesn't want to have sex with you, what's wrong with you?
That's the
Or what's wrong
conditioning.
with him also,
That
right?
right,
Is he gay? You
right.
know, is
Yes.
so there's like we jump to these conclusions. I
Mhm.
know for myself, I definitely thought something was wrong with me. I definitely thought, it's possible that my ex just wasn't that attracted to me. That is possible. But like I definitely thought there was something wrong with me. Like, why don't you want me? You're a man. You're supposed to want to stick it in me all the time.
Right, because that's the conditioning. And I met a woman specifically that she said her and her husband were in a monogamous marriage and it was ending. And she was like, they hadn't had sex in 2 years. And she questioned all those things. Is he gay? Is he this? Is he that? And he would just say, ah, I'm just so bogged down with work. I'm just this, that, and the other. I don't feel, and I was like, maybe he's asexual. And when I said that to her, she didn't have it, she didn't even know the term. And she looked it up and she's like, wow, that might be the case. And then another like test of this was then I met a woman who was her and her husband were polyamorous and they had the freedom to have sex with other people. And she was saying that, you know, she was having that same thing, wondering like, what's wrong with me? Why doesn't he ever want to have sex with me? You know, this, that, and the other. And it was like they also had the freedom to have sex with other people, and he still wasn't choosing to have sex. And it was like, well, again, maybe he's asexual. And then I have other people in my life that I would think about, and I'm like, I know this person and I've known this person for many years, and I've never heard that person talk about their sex life or craving sex or being in a relationship with women that have sex. And it was like, I'm noticing that every man doesn't have this just, I'm want to have sex all the time. And I was able to like see that this is a thing and this exists that I had no clue of, prior to coming into this space and getting this language.
Yeah, I it's it's always good to have these terms to describe people.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And for people to learn to describe themselves, it gives them like language to be like, oh, I'm not weird, I'm not strange because I don't want to have sex. I'm a man, I don't want to have sex all the time. I'm not, it's not, and I'm not, yeah, I don't have sex all the time. I'm not craving sex with anybody, man, woman, whatever, non-binary. I just don't want to have sex. And there's nothing wrong with you if that's the case. Like you just may be asexual. I've learned there's people who are aromantic. That's a whole nother thing that I didn't know exists. So this it's been very interesting to learn about these terms, and that's why, I'm happy to like share it here if this is your first time learning about it. I know that for some people it's really been life affirming to come into this knowledge. So I think this is a good time to transition. What do you think into our segment for the day?
Let's go. What are we talking about?
So this segment is called Sexy
Sexy
Time.
time.
And this is a segment where we give you all a little bit more, well, we give you some insights into our sex life. Um, and more specifically today, we're going to talk about, our sex life and how we navigate having sex with other people.
Yes, common question. They're like, do y'all have sex with other people? You're in a relationship with each other and you have sex with other people. Like, how does that work?
Hmm.
Um,
And I think with
I don't.
polyamory,
I mean,
oh, go ahead, go ahead.
it's such a strange question to me because it's like, what do you mean? How does that work? We.
I mean, but I think most people hear about polyamory on TV. There's all these shows now about sister wives and this, that, and the other, and these polyamory shows, and people think that polyamorous people who are in polyamorous relationships only have sex together, or that it's a man with multiple women and they're only having sex together in these like closed triad situations.
Right, right.
I don't think a lot of people who aren't in our space automatically assume that that's what's going down. They don't assume that these people who may live together and may be polyamorous actually go separate from each other and go have sex with other people. And that's definitely the reality for us. That most of the time we're having sex with other people and not, if we're not just having sex between the two of us, we're having sex outside of this relationship with other people. We're not just having sex with other people together. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. But see, I feel like it's funny because you say go off and have sex with other people. I feel like it's more like we go spend time with other people and, have sex, possibly, likely. If you're with if you're spending time with your other romantic love or another romantic love, you're
Hmm.
probably going to have sex because you're going to experience, you're having a romantic time with this person. So like, he'll go spend time with his other love and I'm sure they have sex, like that's probably what they do. I spend time with my other love and or loves or whoever and probably gonna have sex. It's like I don't think of them as comparative in a lot of the ways that some people probably think. Like sometimes I'll have people will ask me, so if you have sex with somebody else, are you thinking, he doesn't do it like this, or he does it like this, or I mean, not really, I'm not saying I never think about other people when I'm having sex with somebody, but I'm not comparing like in the way that I think a lot of people think we might be comparing. Do you know what I mean?
I didn't know that that's something that people thought of,
Oh my
honestly, in
gosh.
terms of like, are
Yes.
you comparing?
Oh my gosh. So there was, there have been times when I've been dating more than one man, and monogamous people will absolutely ask me if I think about the differences between their penis size, the differences between their stroke, the differences between this, that.
Mm.
Do you think about that? Do you compare them? Do you rate them? Like these types of questions from that I get from monogamous people for sure, especially like monogamous women that I'm having conversations like this with,
Okay.
for sure.
Okay. Yeah, nobody, no, the men don't ask me those type of questions, you know. Okay. So,
What do y'all
you
talk
know, but
about? I always wonder that.
my main
Y'all talk about sports.
facts. You know, my main point though was just the idea of just like bringing to people's awareness who may be watching this, who aren't polyamorous, who aren't non-monogamous, consensually non-monogamous, that yes, we have sex with other people when we're not together. You know, it's not just that we're having threesomes all the time. That's my thing. It's not
Oh,
that we're just in triads and pursuing triads where it's just me, her, and another woman, right? Or me, her, and another man because I'm not homosexual. I'm heterosexual. So um it's
although we could bring it back to that other type of threesome we were talking about earlier. Y'all don't have to
yeah,
interact now.
yeah. No, that's the thing. And I have, I have participated in that with women loves, so
That's so funny. Like I think most of the time, most of the polyamorous people I know are doing what you're talking about, which is engaging in their separate relationships
mhm,
without each other. You
mhm,
know?
mhm.
Uh yeah, we don't typically hang out all together as a date.
Right.
No.
And I think that that's the assumption for a lot of people who aren't in our space, you know what I mean, is that it's always like me, you, and another woman.
I think if you've been listening to this long enough, though, you know that is not us.
Yeah.
That is definitely not us. We have talked about in the last season. We talked about like how we communicate about other relationships, and we actually did talk about this.
Mhm,
Like, do we bring up whether we're going to have sex with somebody beforehand, etc., things like that.
mhm.
Um,
No.
no,
Sometimes.
I will say, we have a good idea that sex is on the horizon
Yeah, yeah,
because we talk. You
yeah.
know
Because we're friends.
exactly.
So we talk about like if we start dating someone new, and if she and I, because we also know that we're both sexual people in that way, that if we start liking someone,
It's gonna
it's a good
happen.
chance that we're gonna have sex with that person as a part of our getting to know you process.
Like he definitely knows that if I start being like, I wonder what sex is like with this
It's
person,
going down.
it's about to
Yeah.
he knows like the cues
Mhm.
that sex is about to happen. So we talk about these things, but it's not required. It's not
Right.
required that we talk about them. It's
There-
just part of our
There's no
dynamic.
requirement. There's no permission. There's no anything like that. It's just we're friends, so we talk about who we're hanging out with, and if we feeling them, and then the vibes is vibing, and if the vibes are vibing, generally speaking, in our getting to know you process with someone, we're gonna explore a sexual element and see if there's any alignment there.
I know you're probably wondering, do y'all get jealous? But we're gonna save that for another episode. So don't worry. We'll be back. We'll be back to talk about this with y'all
Yeah,
later.
yeah, yeah. But I will say, we have had sex with other people together as well.
Yes.
That has been something that we've enjoyed. Um, I would like it to happen more. But, it hasn't lined up that way where, there's been someone in our lives that there's mutual sexual alignment, where there's like a frequency dynamic where we're able to like engage in that way on a regular. Um,
We're actually going to talk about this in the next episode. So let's not give away too much of this because this actually can come up in our next episode, I think, right?
I don't know about the sex part of it, but I guess
No, we gotta include.
partly,
Yeah, I think we gotta
partly.
include that a little
But
bit.
I think it is, just cool to share that. Yeah, we've had our fun experiences together. We do have a shared love that's at a long distance connection
Mhm.
that we are able to share. We both have like separate relationships with this person that
Yeah,
totally emerged
which is interesting because
separately.
it's almost weird. I almost don't even think that we like share this relationship. I have a relationship with her, and he has a relationship with her. And when we visit her or if she visits us, we spend time together. But the relationships are different. We don't be in the group chat or anything like that.
Right.
He's on the phone with her catching up.
It's
I'm
totally
on the phone
separately.
with her catching up. Like I might be like, hey, did you talk to her? In the last week because this is what she's up to. Because she and I are like friends. So yeah.
Yeah, she's visited her just separately.
Yep.
I visited her separately,
Right.
and then we visited her together, or
Right.
she's came to visit us. And so that's just another window into like how some of the nuance of how these things can look. So yeah,
I think we've given y'all enough sexy talk for the day.
Yeah, we tell y'all way too much, don't we?
I swear, y'all get too much information. No, no, just joking. You probably
Yeah,
love it. I know you watching this episode like, wow, with your popcorn and everything, aren't you?
yeah.
But yeah, this was fun.
Yeah. Well, once again, thank y'all for being here. Thank y'all for being on this journey with us. Hopefully, y'all get a little entertainment and you learned something, some
Edutainment.
edutainment. So, as always, we appreciate y'all and we love y'all. And until next time, peace. That's a wrap for this episode of SunShan Rainbows. We hope today's conversation sparked some new insights, deep reflections, or just gave you a fresh perspective on love and connection.
We'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop us a comment, send us your questions, or share your own experiences. We might even feature them in a future episode.
And don't forget to subscribe to SunShan and Rainbows on YouTube and your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. And if you're vibing with us, please like, comment, share, and leave a review. It helps others find the show and keeps these conversations going.
Want more Sunshine and Rainbows? Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Sunshine Rainbows for daily insights, behind the scenes moments, and updates on future episodes.
Until next time, we love y'all. Peace.